We are live here on June 7th, 2021 for Heavy Muscle Radio, and I'm here, as always, with my compatriot in crime, Chris Aceto, fresh off the main relay races. Where were you this past weekend with your kids?
This past Saturday, I told you I was at the state meet.
Yeah.
The state track and field
That's
championships.
the state championships.
Yeah, and my 17-year-old passed out before the long jump.
What happened?
No, it wasn't even using any diuretics, but I'll get blamed.
Maybe you were sodium restricting too much.
It was 99, Dave. 99 degrees.
Wow.
And he's always had issues with overheating ever since he was a kid, you know?
Right.
And I think, too, that he might have got into, like, one of my – people send me all the time, like, pre-workout stimulants.
Right.
And I bet he got into that, so that added to, like, you know, heat exhaustion.
Sure.
And so he had to scratch the long jump. And he did – I told you he did the triple jump. And he was in the lead.
He's a tremendous triple jumper, too.
He's only been doing it a year, this season. And he was in the lead to win the state championships with the heavy favorite one jump left. And like a Sergio Oliva, I told him, go get on this kid's nerves. He's got one jump left. Just say something. He's like, no, I can't. I said, just say something. I said, I'll say something. Yeah. I'll say something.
You embarrassed your son, yeah.
No, just rattle his cage a little bit, because the kids won the triple jump ever since he was 8 years.
What your son should have said is he should have said, I called my grandmother. I already told her I win the race. So
yeah.
I win the jump. I break the record.
They're having a party the first event you've ever lost in the triple jump since you were 8 years old.
That what Chris is not telling you is that his son doesn't even practice that stuff, right? Your son doesn't, right? He just goes to the meets, right?
No, he goes to like the high school practices, but like the kid who beat him.
Yeah.
You know, he goes to summer camps, and, you know, he does strength and conditioning for track all year round.
Your son does the bare minimum, in other words, yeah.
My son does, like, you know, it's 8 weeks out. I want to get ready for a contest.
Right.
But you're small and fat. Well, you know, I got good genetics. I can Remember you told me LeBron transformed in, what was that? The year you prepped him?
6 weeks. 6 weeks. Yeah.
6 weeks. So, he just won it.
So now, is your son graduating this year?
No, next year. He's going into a senior year.
He technically has if he really applies himself over the next year, he could probably be the state champion next year, right?
Well, he can break he's only 8 inches away from long jump state record and triple jump state record.
Wow. So
that's 8 inches.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking scholarship money. That's what you're thinking.
Oh, right? Gosh. I'm thinking, just get the scholarships. You know,
I mean, I have to imagine that with the numbers he's putting up, that he could absolutely do it, right?
I would think so. If not, Dave, if I can do a GoFundMe, and Austin Lloyd can come on and say, "How dare Chris Aceto?"
Now, yeah. What was you were very upset. I was very kind of like disturbed almost that the Boston, Dusty Hanshaw, for a lot of people who don't know, might not know, has been, and I don't even know what the status is, because it's impossible to find out what's going on with him. But he was choking on some kind of a piece of steak a few weeks ago, and it somehow ruptured his esophagus. And you can't have a hole in your esophagus, and still function. So I guess they had to put a breathing tube down him, and they had to put a feeding tube down him, and I think induce him into like some kind of a coma or something like that.
That's exactly what that's
what I heard, at least.
I heard that through. I would consider Dusty a good friend of mine.
Yeah, you worked with him for a while.
And Ron Partlow and Jose are good friends, and I heard both from Ron and Jose exactly what you said to confirm.
Yeah. And Dante Trudell had started a GoFundMe for Dusty, because probably Dusty has no health insurance, or I am assuming.
He may, yeah. But you know what? When you're in the hospital, I get news.
Yeah.
Where's Romano? Because he's a lib like me on these things. He wants to live in France or Canada, where Ron Partlow breaks his ankle, and he gets a bill for like 50 cents, and you break your ankle here, even if you have insurance, you still get a bill for like 10 grand.
Yeah. When I tore my quad in India, I paid cash out of pocket. It was like they x-rayed me, they saw the doctor, they drained my knee, they gave me medication. It was like 4 billion, like whatever their money is there, and when you translate it to U.S. funds, it was like $10 or something like that.
Yeah, but so I mean, if anyone has decent, pretty good health insurance, and you have something quasi cataclysmic, you're bankrupt. That's the whole, that's the entire, you always hear this thing like Americans insured is a one like serious medical issue away from being bankrupt. And so Dante was smart enough and nice enough to go out, I think, with Dusty's sister on their own to put together a GoFundMe campaign, which people, you can still donate. And
a lot of money they got. They raised
enormous amount of money, which, because Dusty's got a big reach. People like him a lot. And, just because you have insurance does not mean you are fully covered in any way, shape, or form. You have caps on things. I had cancer. I had a cap on my insurance. Insurance kicked in a ton until it didn't anymore.
I didn't know that. Wow.
There was a lot of out-of-pocket expenses towards the end, Do you know
how much money they raised for him already, Chris? Take a guess.
160?
It's pretty close. Yeah.
What'd they raise?
I'm going to put it up there for you. $127,000.
Super.
It's great. He's a nice guy. He deserves it. You know what the truth is? What people don't realize? Dusty was unconscious, and he still might be, is unconscious. So Dusty didn't do any GoFundMe for himself. He probably would have been against the whole thing, I'm sure.
But what is the point? So you can put up what, you can screenshot.
I'm not going to put up. It's too ugly. But what Boston was implying is that, Dusty was like a bragger about the fact that he makes a lot of money, and now that he's sick, and then he says all these guys, they get sick and then they go and ask for money on GoFundMe. That's pretty fucked up because he doesn't know Dusty's finances. Dusty didn't even make this decision to put up a GoFundMe because he was unconscious. Okay, and you know what? I think Boston overstepped his.
Nobody's forcing anyone. Nobody's forcing anyone to make a donation.
Right.
And it's not donation for the prep for the Chicago Pro.
Exactly.
It's a donation to help offset medical expenses. I mean, if you've been in intensive care for 3 weeks, your bill is not $100 a day.
Right.
And you know how it works. God forbid if you go into the emergency room and you don't go into the right hospital and you're not in the right network, you're going to get screwed anyway.
It's true. Sure. Well, I wish Dusty, obviously he's a good guy. I always got along very well with him. Yeah, I hope he's well. I don't know why we can't find an update on this, but I know you've reached out to the people who would know, and no one seems to know.
I've reached out, and it's probably you haven't got an update because there's no great news on the horizon. I mean, I don't know, but if things were like really heading in the right direction, I'm sure we would have heard.
It's like I said, I wish him the best because it's tough, to see that happen to someone we know. And you know what? It wasn't like he had a heart attack. He didn't, get cancer. It was like a freak accident too. I mean, look at like when my quad. Imagine if when I slipped on that staircase, Chris, if I would have fallen down the whole flight of steps and cracked my head open or something like that and been in a coma in India somewhere. I mean, that's what it's really analogous to. I mean, it's just a freak thing that happened.
Well, on all
Romano's at the airport. People keep asking what's going on with Romano. He's at the airport right now.
Which airport? Where's he flying to?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know he's leaving someplace. I don't know where. Him and his wife, Val. He mistimed everything. But anyway, I think it's. I think that people have to be a little more compassionate. I don't know. I don't know if Boston just doesn't. Care, or if I think there's a disconnect there sometimes with the emotionality aspect of of who he is, because I know he's got a good heart. He just sometimes doesn't get it. When people are down, you don't kick them when they're down. You help them out, you lift them up. That's what we're here to do. So I wanted to there was a couple shows this past weekend, and I wanted to really focus today's show, Chris, on Classic Physique, because it's still a fairly new division. I think it's still finding its way, and there's a lot of great talent out there. It's exciting because very rarely, we get so excited when we see a Nick Walker come into the open bodybuilding, who kind of takes the division by storm. But in Classic, it seems like every month there's a new guy out there who's doing something crazy.
Well, listen, the Olympia, not this past year, but the year before, so that would have been 2019 Olympia. I don't know how many people qualified for it. It was like 40 something. And, you know, the judging besides, which I thought was very accurate, after top 12, 13 through like 29, the guy who got 29th could have placed, you know, 4 spots, 8 spots higher, and the guy who got 13th could have placed 4, 5, 6, 7 spots lower, meaning they were all excellent, a lot of depth. And that's I think what we're seeing now, besides even better physiques coming on the horizon, is the level of depth is outstanding. Yeah. So these shows are classic. They're going to become harder and harder to judge because there's so many good guys with their own bells and whistles. And, you know, the person who comes to mind is like Terrence Ruffin, who's not big and could get lost in the lineup, but they judge him accordingly, meaning they give him fair shake, and he moves all the way up to, what, 3rd. And I think the first or the second year he was in the show, the second year I saw him in the Classic Physique division. I mean, he was so outstanding, and I think he was overlooked a little bit. But people like him, and there's just a lot of people like him who are not super big, and you don't have to be super big, but they're put together right, great conditioning, great flow. And again, it adds to the depth of, you know, the level of competition is, I think is, I mean, it's steep and it's amazing. And you're seeing more, right? You're seeing just more competitors at these shows.
It makes it exciting, you know? And I think sometimes, you know, people get disillusioned with the men's open because it's not as exciting because you don't see as many new kind of talent coming into it like we did back in the 90s. And that's because I think a lot of guys are going through the classic division and then transitioning to other
12, divisions.
But, you know, I just to go back to what we were saying about Dusty, you know, it's funny because a couple people posted, I know one of my clients, John Effer, posted that my little prodigy I work with, he made a good point. He's like, you know, I'd rather donate to someone like Dusty, you know, than someone who tears his pec. You know,
it's a great point.
You know what I mean? Like, this is the guy's health. The guy could die. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you know, people would be critical and say, "What's he doing benching 950?" You know, or you know, of course he's going to tear a pec, but this is a guy eating a steak. And I told you the funny thing, not the funny thing. My father, I was with him when he ate a steak once, and it went down his lung and punctured his lung. Mm-hmm. And it was the weirdest thing. So when, you know, he was out of commission for 3 months, and, you know, Dusty had the same issue, but it ripped his esophagus, the lining of his esophagus. At least it's, you know, that's how it's been explained to me. So it's a freak accident. I mean, a pec tear, he's right. The guy who just commented is right. You know, a pec tear is a pec tear, a quad tear is a quad tear when you're in the gym. Right. And people will probably donate. And I think that's why so many people are, besides Dusty being a great guy, well known, so many people have responded, you know, because it's a freak accident. And it's not one of the, I mean, he's fighting for his life. It's not a freak accident like, you know, oh, his shoulder's blown out and he's not competing again. It's, you know, he's in deep trouble. Yeah. So I think those people who donated, you know, have the right response, whereas people who are critical of donating have the completely wrong response. True. I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. You know, when people are talking about Boston's kidney failure, you know, yeah, well, you know what, Boston, you know, by his own admission, caused his own kidney failure. And I'm sure that people would come, and myself included, even though him and even though I don't have him really on the show anymore because of a dispute we had, but he doesn't want to. But I would still come. I would be the first guy, you know, helping him out if he asked for my help with this kidney issue. Because you know what, even though it was stupidly self-induced, that doesn't mean that, you know, as iron brothers and sisters, we're not going to help each other and raise each other up. So I don't know why. And Boston's got money, but I would help him in 2 seconds if he ever asked me. So. And I'm sure a lot of other people out there would, because no one wants to see anyone get sick or anything like that. It's just, it's a shame. Someone did put in the comments, Chris, that Dusty was responsive now, because I think Dante Trudell had posted an update. I didn't see that update, but I think he is I don't know what responsive means, though. I guess maybe he's conscious. I'm not sure.
it seems like it was just a severe injury, and the injury was so severe, and because they had to put the breathing tube down him, that they sedated him purposely. You know, because you'll freak out with a breathing tube down your throat. You can't be awake. I mean, it's just not. So I guess they wanted to let the thing heal while he was in kind of a self-induced like type of coma or like state. And I guess maybe now they're bringing him back as the injury has healed. So that's good news. I'm glad someone at least was able to update us on that. I didn't see it. I would have thought someone would have texted you back, Chris, of all the people who know over there.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've been trying to find out, and I get a little worried when I don't hear from people. I said, Ron Parlow did leave me a long message, but it was all gargled because my phone. I got a $1,000 phone that doesn't work. Yeah,
it's funny because you used to have like a $5 phone that didn't really function, and so you went out and got a nice phone that actually does everything, and it still doesn't work.
No, I jinx it.
It still doesn't. Meanwhile, Valentino has a flip phone still. You remember the old flip phone?
I didn't even know you could still get. Yeah,
I think the flip phone came out right after they did away with your last BlackBerry that you got rid of.
Yeah,
and the flip phone was like the next best thing after the BlackBerry, and he refuses to get rid of it. And I even had a client of mine, a really good client, send him a free phone, and he won't activate it because he knows as soon as that phone is activated and he can actually access the internet with it, that his girlfriend will no longer do his social media for him. So he purposely won't activate it.
Well, he's brilliant. Is what he is. He's delegating his time.
Yeah. It's funny. So people are asking in the comments, so I got to respond. But about other sites, say because I remember I told you, Chris, I'm no longer responding to these morons who have these shows that like want to call me out and everything like that because they're doing it for publicity, and so I refuse to engage these people. So someone writes, "What do you think? What do you think about Leo?" I don't even know I'm responding to that. I just think it's funny. What do you think about Leo calling you a sick, jealous weirdo, Dave? Well, he's right. I'm a sick, jealous weirdo, right, Chris?
Who's Leo?
There you go. That's a good answer, Chris, right there. Who's Leo? There is no. Exactly. You know what? I'm not going into these people's wheelhouses because I don't really care about them. They can do whatever they want. They can say anything about me. I always tell people, you know what? There's a lot of people who contact me, clients of mine, or just people who compete, who want advice from someone like who's been there. And they say to me, Dave, this social media thing, I got to be honest with you, it bothers me. People, put me down. It doesn't matter. I could do well at a show. And then I have these guys. I said, do not worry about the good opinion of others. Because as soon as you engage that, you're giving it energy, you're giving it life. If you just ignore it and let it pass, even though it's people say ugly shit and they're jealous and whatever, and they want to, try to typecast you to try to get themselves publicity, ignore it. That's the best thing I can tell you. And you know what? As soon as you ignore it, it loses any life that it has. That's the truth. And you know what? People's attention span and memory is about maybe 12 hours. So whatever someone said about you 12 hours ago, people forgot already.
Yeah, I forgot everything someone said negative about me except Sean Ray. I told someone that the other day. They said, "Oh, someone said negative about you." I said, I never pay attention, positive or negative.
Yeah, no.
I don't.
Everything Leo says is right, is correct, absolutely correct. Yeah. So you could this way stop asking questions. So I'm not going to address it. Everything he says is truth. I mean, that's the way he is. We'll just accept that as reality. This way, I don't have to even counter anything.
Yeah. Well, if you were countering, you'd have to have a whole show on countering. Right?
No, but that's what they want. They want me to engage these. Yeah. And in the past I would because I enjoyed like fighting with people. But you know what? I decided I'm not going to.
You're too busy.
It's too negative. No, it's too negative. I think I want to be more of a positive.
Well, I mean, you're too busy. What I meant by you're too busy. If you engage in negative, then you can't focus on what you're trying to accomplish, whatever that is.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm taking away from my creative process by
you are
doing that.
Including
I'd rather spend the time drawing a picture or playing with my kids or doing some animal stuff.
Dave, you got to see if you can get us on like me, you, and like a few other maybe I don't know. We can get Jay and Tyler Mannion on the bodybuilding Family Feud. I've been watching Family Feud because my son, my 7-year-old loves it, so I play Family Feud with him.
Yeah.
I'll say like, top 5 vegetables kids hate. And I do the ding or
Brussels sprouts. Am I right?
What's that?
Is Brussels sprouts in the top 5?
Broccoli, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
It's everything he hates. Cauliflower, the stuff I try to make him eat. Onions.
Let me show you. I'm going to show you a cool. You want to see a modern day dinosaur, Chris? I went to my friend Tom Crutchfield's house.
Oh, this is your dream to get a modern day dinosaur. Dave's just can't wait to clone a dinosaur somehow.
Tom Crutchfield was actually in the bodybuilding world for many years too. But he's a reptile legend. They used to smuggle reptiles in from other countries, but before it was illegal. Like you can go to like the Cayman Islands and you can get lizards and you can put them in your pocket and get on the airplane. Because remember there was no security.
Yeah, back in the day, sure.
Yeah. Guys who did it with bags of cocaine, they used to bring reptiles back. Anyway, so Tom's been around forever, and he's got some great stuff. So I let me see if I can pull this up. So I was at his place a couple weeks ago. Look at this.
Where does he live? Florida?
He lives in Homestead, yeah. So he has outdoor enclosures. That's a crocodile. Excuse me, a crocodile monitor. They're like the longest living, biggest. I think they're almost as big as they get as big as Komodo dragons or something like that.
Who'd you go out there with? Yourself?
I went there just with Tyler, my video guy. Tyler, the creator.
I'm sure your wife yelled at you, said, "Don't you dare think about," because she knows.
No, the reason I went out there was this was when I was radioactive, and I couldn't go home. Okay. So I went there when I was radioactive, and I did some videos out there just to see because I hadn't seen Tom in a while, and I figured, I drove over to Homestead. It was only like 2.5 hours. And look at the size of that freaking lizard. Isn't that fucking great?
Crazy.
Yeah. It's like, can you believe that? I mean, things like people don't even realize stuff like that is actually still alive these days. It's like
no myostatin. No myostatin.
No myostatin. I truly believe we're going to clone a dinosaur in our lifetime. Yeah. I do. I believe it.
Why couldn't we? Well, I mean, look at why not? I mean,
right? I mean,
why not?
I think we can. Let me see if I have any other stuff. These are some of the snakes I breed. People always ask me about that. Pretty cool. I call that the ultraviolet ball python.
I quizzed you when I was at the snake farm I quizzed Dave when I was at the snake farm in Florida. I'd send him the pictures, and they would have on the tank it would have the name of the snake. So I knew the name, and I'd say, Dave, what's this? And I couldn't
stop me. If
you were on Family Feud, you would have won the championship. You would have won the car, like the subcompact. I saw you were looking at that Mercedes minivan.
No, yeah, well, that I wound up getting the X7. Have you seen that? It's a bigger X5 basically, and I just I like BMWs. I've always liked them. So
you do.
They made a bigger one. I could fit all the kids in there. I think I posted on my Instagram. Hold on. I like it. You'd like this car too because it drives like a car, but it's a. Yeah.
The minute I saw that on your Instagram, I said, they've got it. It's written all over. It's you.
Well, I actually like the X5 better, but I needed more room because I got 3 kids now, so I can't put 3 car seats in there. But this one I can put 3 car seats. It's got like a third row in it. It's it's functional, so.
Perfect. You get it home and mess it to death with the kids. You can't keep a vehicle like that clean with the kids.
No, you should see our minivan. It's so disgusting, and I'm like a person who is like a man.
You're a clean freak. Yeah, your house is perfectly clean. Except
maybe not my house, but at least my cars. I always
used to be pre-kids. It used to be. Let me correct you.
Yeah, because I used to have a cleaning woman. Now I wouldn't even have I would be embarrassed for a cleaning woman to come into the house. Isn't it funny how like if your house is too dirty, you can't even get a cleaning woman to come in because
No, because you have to pre-clean it. They don't want to
pre-clean.
You have to pre-clean it because they don't want to like get down.
It's too embarrassing to have them in there. If it's nasty. Anyway, that's my.
I told you I've been talking to Ed Connors lately.
Oh yeah, what do you have to say about him?
No, he had asked me about.
He actually sent me a link to that new. There's like a new I don't know, true life story of the Ultimate Warrior. I guess he was in there.
And he had sent me some I don't know how we got talking about it. He had sent me like some pictures of John Cena when John was like staying at his, I mean, it's like years and years and years ago when John was competing and staying at Ed's house, and Ed got reminiscent, and he asked me what year did I work in his office, and I told him the story about breaking the expense record. I broke the expense record for the downside. He sent me to Minnesota to go run to do the Gold's Gym supplements. I had to visit like 20 stores in 14 days. And I didn't have I don't think I even had a credit card. I was like 21.
Right.
And he gave me his credit card. It said Ed Connors on it. And I went to Minnesota and I rented a car that had like 150,000 miles on it. It was like $9 a day.
Right.
And I stayed out there, and
meanwhile, most of the guys probably that would go on trips for Ed were probably spending.
They would drink Dom Perignon at night. I'm dead serious.
They were probably renting Ferraris like they were driving around.
Yeah, Dave. They would. I booked my flight, everything. He reimbursed me. They booked first class. They would eat out every single meal, and I'd go to like Kroger or whatever and get like tuna and like rice cakes and potatoes and cook them in the.
You were acting like it was your money you were spending, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And I stayed at the worst hotels ever, like on the side of the road in rural Minnesota. And when I got back and I put all the expenses in this manila envelope and I submitted it. And one day he called me into his office and he told me to sit down. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my heart was beating. I was like, oh, here's where I get fired. You
thought you were going to get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Like you overspent. Like you should never have gone to Kroger to get that extra can of tuna. It was like too many meals in one day.
And he said, people don't know this is the owner of Gold's Gym when Gold's was in its heyday, Ed Connors. And he discovered all kinds of wrestlers, John Cena, who do we just talking about? Jimmy, who are you just talking about, Dave? The big time wrestler who died.
Ultimate Warrior.
Ultimate Warrior. He discovered a lot of people and a lot of connections. And so I get into his office and he throws the manila folder at me and he says, "What's this?" But he says in a very calm, methodical way. I said, "It's my expenses." He said, "It can't be." He said, "There's nothing there. You were gone 2 weeks." And then it dawned on me like 3/4 the way through the meeting, like, oh my gosh, he can't believe how little I spent. So I said, I didn't want to let you down, Ed. I mean, going out there on his credit card, I think I went into like Kroger and paid for all the food with it, just.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate wasting money on stuff too. Even when I used to travel back to New York, to see my dad or whatever, to go to the New York Pro, I would stay in a cheap hotel too. I mean, and I could afford to stay in a nice hotel. I just think it's a waste of money. You know what I mean? Unless I wasn't going on vacation. You know what I mean? I was going to do a job. So for me, I'm in the room to sleep and that's it, and take a shower. So why? Even though the business is paying, but why spend the money? I don't know. It's like a waste to me. I'd rather go out and eat a nice dinner. You know what I mean? Like, it's waste money on a hotel, or even a nice fancy rented car. I don't need. I used to get the cheapest piece of shit, and just drive it around. It doesn't matter. I'm not impressing anyone. I don't know. People have different things. People like to do, fancy schmancy stuff. I always, when people would send me on trips, even Blackman too, I would always try to get the cheapest stuff too, because I didn't want anyone to think I'm taking advantage of it.
Yes, that's the whole thing. It's his money, and I don't want to. I'd go triple cheap on his dime if I was.
And you've gone like overseas where people have gotten you amazing hotel rooms, but you didn't ask for it. They just put you in the hotel. Yes. And I'm like, all right, well, that's a different story. If they're going to spend it and they want to spend it, then fine.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you see the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight?
No, my son, he didn't overheat, but he watched it eating nachos last night.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. It was last night. Was it last night or 2 nights ago? It was last night.
It was last night. Someone sent me a link to it. I was watching it, and it's funny because I always wonder, is the whole thing fixed?
Me too. That's my thought.
Because I know because Triple H told me that when Floyd did that WrestleMania that one time with them, he said Floyd is a marketing genius. He totally gets it. He understands how to make money and suck people in. So I was thinking that in my head, and I'm thinking, could Floyd have knocked the crap out of this guy and put him out? Or did he carry him and just put on a good fight, like almost like a WWE thing, because they knew that that would draw more people in and have them want to watch it again, the type of thing.
Yeah.
Because they made millions. I mean, I'm sure Floyd made a ridiculous amount of money for that stupid demonstration he did,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I found it entertaining just because, it was, just because, number one, I didn't pay for it. Number two, it's just, it's cool to see an internet, guy fight, like the greatest boxer maybe of all time,
Yeah.
It would be like seeing a pose down between Dorian Yates and some internet, guy, that just happens to be a real,
yeah. Well, if this was probably, well, I don't know, but if Dorian Yates was knowing who he is and he was Mr. Olympia this year, he'd probably have 1 million followers. That's it, because he would pay no attention. He might not. He'd probably have no followers. He'd let someone handle it for him. Maybe he would, because it'd say, okay, someone else, but he would not be engaged. That's not a negative on other people, but he wouldn't have that many followers.
Right, but let's say Dorian had retired, he'd been retired for maybe 2 or 3 years, and he was still kind of big. And they're like, you know what, Dorian, we're going to do this thing. This internet guy who thinks he's, the greatest bodybuilder. He's always posting stuff. He never competed before. Let's get a one-on-one pose down. We'll do it pay-per-view. We'll give you $1 million to do it. Of course, Dorian's going to do it for $1 million, right?
$1 million. Yeah, might do it for $1 million.
It would be great, and people would love it, because it would be like, well, this guy's a big freak, and even though he doesn't have maybe the structure, Dorian, maybe he can beat him. That's the whole thing, right? Maybe everyone was thinking Logan Paul's bigger than Floyd. Maybe he can beat him.
Yeah. What's Logan Paul's weight?
I think it was almost 190, 189.
Yeah, pretty big. He looked really big.
Yeah,
he muscular and big, and
he wasn't. He did a pretty good job. He was definitely trained for the fight. You could tell he was in shape.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah,
they did a great job. I'll consider, unless it was.
But he even said, I don't even think he knew. He said, I just wonder if Floyd let me go the distance, or or if I actually was good enough to do it. I don't know.
When you see Triple H, ask him what he thought.
Yeah, he's going to say it was a fix. Guarantee it. he'll say they choreographed it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'll shoot him a text later and ask him. All right, I want to get to this classic physique division here. There was a show called the Miami Muscle Beach this past weekend in Miami Beach, Florida. I'm surprised you didn't go down there. You could have stayed at your condo.
Yeah,
right?
It's rented.
Oh, you're actually back to renting it again. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm renting. I get too much on my plate.
That's great. I'm glad that the people are traveling again.
I sent you my renovation. You can put those pictures up if you put a video up.
Yeah, it was too many pictures.
Yeah.
All right. Zeke Andrews won the show. There's this picture. What do you think?
I think he's excellent.
Yeah, me too.
I think he's got to put on the Lee Priest glasses. He's in tremendous condition.
Yeah.
And just looks like a classic guy. I mean, there's two big things right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a missed opportunity for a lot of guys too, because there was only 9 guys in this lineup.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
You would have thought, with all the classic guys out there, and the fact that there's only a limited amount of Olympia spots this year, that I would have seen a bigger lineup than 9 guys in classic physique. Why do you think that is? You think it was an off week, or I mean,
it's an unbelievable good question. I mean, it's a great question, because we know this, there's sitting around legit probably 40 dangerous pros, who could all crack the top 5 in a show like this, maybe more. Maybe there's more than 40. Maybe there's 70. You can't say that maybe there's 60. You cannot say, if this was a men's open pro show, hey, there's 60 pros sitting around, there's not.
Yeah.
And with classic, there's just so many good people. So it's weird that 9 showed up. I don't know if the show was really heavily publicized, but I mean, it's on the calendar, and people who have their pro cards, know what is on the calendar, what's not on the calendar. So, this kid, he pushed Danny Noonan pretty hard, and Danny's got a phenomenal physique, and perennial Olympia top 7 guy, arguably higher.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're looking for.
True.
So, I mean, he'll do fairly well, decent. You know, I would normally say he'd do great at the Olympia, but
the Olympia is going to be stacked.
Yeah, with it so stacked. You know, and that's one other thing, Dave, with the other exciting part, I guess, that creates some type of buzz for the classic Olympia is that Chris Bumstead has won, twice now?
Yeah. So
he's going to be defending, but more important, every year that he's been in it, he's made a big jump in his physique. So if he had the same exact physique 3 years running, it would create some weird sense of boredom, even if he could win it again. But like, oh yeah, Bumstead, who cares? We know exactly what he's going to look like. He won last year, won the year before.
He's still on the up. He's on the up still.
Yeah, but getting better creates a little bit more drama, I think. You know, for the division. So, I mean, there's a lot of excitement in the division. Period.
Yeah. There's Tommy Clark, second place at Miami Muscle Beach. Good structure.
Yep.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, I was impressed. You know, the guys, like I said, the guys who were there did well. You know, and I think that, you know, it was a missed opportunity. I'm glad these guys did it because they got points now, and they're going into, you know, they keep competing. That's gonna help them moving forward. Yeah. Obviously, the good thing is if you have any kind of like ability to, you know, do multiple shows, which you really should at this point in your career. I mean, I don't know why guys only can do one show a year. You could do multiple shows. You could place top 5. You could accumulate points, you know, all day long. And I think that's the way to get. That's a back door to the Olympia that never existed before. If you think about it, right?
Yeah, it is.
Look at Michael Bell, third place. I mean, Michael Bell, you know, is another guy that's going to be. You know, if he knocks off a few shows and keeps placing, he could wind up at the Olympia. And I think that's, you know, the goal here. There he is.
Yeah, he's good too.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are, like you said, not going to be Chris Bumstead, but if they get to the Olympia for the first time because, you know, they're doing shows, that's the key. You know, if I'm a classic guy and I have a weight limit, I'm going to hit a whole bunch of shows. You know, there's no reason, you know, to not at that point. I don't know why guys are, you know, waiting. You know, what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to kind of, congratulations, by the way, to those top 3. I just wanted to talk about this classic division. I mean, with a Chris Bumstead at the top and the ceiling set so high, you know, it seems as though we're in that kind of realm where everyone else is kind of shooting for second place. Now, obviously, if Chris came in out of shape or something happened to him, you know, obviously he's dealing with a chronic health issue that's always there. You know, at any given day, he can always have a problem. But assuming he comes in as good as he was last year, maybe even a little better, I mean, can anyone beat him, Chris, you think?
It's going to take a lot to beat him. I just, you know, I thought last year's win was clear cut. And I mean, imagine that any division, right? You go into the Olympia and you say, oh, clear cut win. Yeah. You know, it's hard to be clear cut. And what makes it clear cut is just his strengths, his height and width works for him on stage a lot. Yeah. You'd think he'd look a little lanky because he's so tall for the division compared to the other guys he's competing against who got, you know, second, third, fourth, let's say. Yeah. His height works, his width works. Of course, his condition last year was impeccable, and he's made improvements. You know, he's got a couple the front lat spread, which I don't even know if it's a mandatory shot, is a knockout shot. Yeah. I mean, he does it as part of his routine. His stance is really hard to beat because of the width, and you know, he's got great legs. He got width with a small waist and great leg separation standing from the front.
It's crazy.
I mean, a lot of shows that they're not one standing from the front, but a lot of times you're just standing looking at the judges while they're trying to figure out who, you know, what's the next comparison we're going to make, and you look up, you know, and that's what you see.
When I look at him, I'm always amazed that he can make the weight. And then he tells me he still has 10 pounds he can gain, which is because he's so tall.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably one of the best. You know, what is he, 6'3", something like that?
He's probably, I mean,
he's one of the best tall bodybuilders in terms of balance that I've seen, maybe, you know, ever, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when you're tall, you get weird body, you know, something looks too short, legs might look too short, arms look too long, you know.
He doesn't have that problem.
No.
He doesn't have it.
Yeah, he's got balance. He's got balance on his his structure, but he's also got balance on his development too.
Compare him to like a Barry DeMay back in the day.
It's a good comparison because they're probably, they're both tall. They got great legs.
Who's better?
Maybe Bumstead.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's more complete,
Bumstead.
maybe. But Barry was great. I mean, there was a couple shows that Barry looked really good.
Yeah, the year they screwed him big time in the New York Pro.
Yes, we talked about that before. Yeah, he was really good.
Did he talk about that?
He didn't. I think we've talked about that.
Yeah, he was crazy at that show, and they gave him like 5th or 6th.
Right? Yeah.
I wasn't there at that show, but I did hear. That's when they used to sell the place out like 3,500 fans, and the crowd went ballistic.
I think Bumstead. I don't know if Bumstead was bigger than him or not. Or what do you think?
Barry looks good there, though. Yeah. I hate to make those comparisons because you know what I mean.
It's hard.
Nothing against no one, but Barry is standing next to Sugar Sean and Haney at the show and Stridham. Chris is not standing next to Lee Haney and Sean Ray and those type of guys. Lee Labrada.
I think that it would have been a good comparison. I think DeMay would have been a good classic physique guy. I think he would have made the weight because of his height. And
think of that Olympia. That Olympia just pulled up pictures. Barry was in the show next to Bob Paris. They both look great at that show. Talk about two classic guys.
I think that Bob Paris would have been too tall, probably. I mean, too heavy, don't you think, for classic?
No, because he was very light on stage.
He was? Like, what was his weight? Was he under
low 230s? Low 230s.
I think for his height, he still would have been too big.
He's pretty tall, so maybe I think he could have made.
Barry was a freak. Barry definitely would have been a great classic physique guy. There's no doubt in my mind. Because he had that structure. I mean, that was I think that's why Joe Weider liked him so much, don't you think?
Yeah, that and photogenic. I can put him on the magazines, Dave. Put him on the cover.
That's Joe. Joe was always thinking who was the most. He didn't care who was the champions were. He obviously put those in the thing, but he always thought marketing, and I think that was really brilliant. That's probably why he made so much money.
Well, what? People used to get infuriated when Joe went from muscle builder to muscle and fitness, right?
Yeah.
He'd try to put like Robbie Robinson from like crazy on the cover of Muscle Builder to Muscle and Fitness with like swim goggles on. No, because in his mind he was thinking way ahead, too far ahead.
Right.
I mean, like. He'd be a type of guy that said, put Barry in board shorts, and on the beach.
Wow.
And we'll try to market him or something.
He was smart. I when I first started reading magazines, I didn't go right to Flex magazine. I read Muscle and Fitness at first because I felt like it was like Flex was almost like too intimidating initially.
Yeah.
And so Joe was good because Muscle and Fitness kind of like was like it was kind of like the transition into Flex,
Dude, he came up with Muscle and Fitness Hers, which the circulation like just went nuts, and people were like, what do you mean Muscle and Fitness Hers?
I know. I thought that was the worst decision of all time, and he actually was making good money with that, right?
Yeah, it's like Pizza Hut coming out with, we're going to come up with Pizza Hut Healthy, and be like, just eat pizza, and having it take off like more than
right.
I mean, he was so far ahead of his time, it was ridiculous. That's why, Dave, when I say if Joe had the energy when the internet came out, he would have killed it. He would have dominated because he would have loved it. He would have recognized. I mean, he's just too far. He'd already accomplished everything needed to be accomplished in his life. Does he really?
He would have paid the right people to do the job that he wanted to do.
For sure. And he would have loved it. He would have loved it because he would have been able to put these pictures up live. He wouldn't have to wait to develop the crowd.
Yeah. How's Sergio looking? Someone wants to know.
Good. He looks good. 300.
What show is he doing?
He's undecided. I talked to him last night. I talked to him. I was watching Michael Jackson concerts while I was at Walmart looking for cleaning supplies, and I said I thought of you somehow, Sergio. So I called him. I said, because I don't get inspired by bodybuilding. I get inspired by other stuff.
Yeah. Would you have to buy cleaning supplies for one of your apartments?
For this Airbnb I'm at.
Oh.
I ever get it open.
Yeah. Is that an Airbnb you're in right now?
This is an Airbnb, yeah.
Is that the one you sent me pictures of?
Yeah, it took me a year to complete because everyone had COVID or everyone was afraid of anyone else.
It was disgusting. I wish I don't have the video. I didn't download it, but Chris sent me this video of how it looked. It looked like a haunted house, basically.
Yeah. So it was, what happened, Dave, is I bought it like 10 years ago, and it's like a crazy, fantastic location. But it's a 5-unit apartment building. This apartment was just so beat up that I knew, God, just walking through the door, if I evict people who've been there forever, which eventually I did after like 10 years, and want to like do what I want to do with it, it's just going to cost so much. So I just was cheaped out and said, just get the low rent for the
people. You bought the tuna packets instead of going for the filet mignon.
Yeah. So now I turned it into like it's like the Four Seasons.
Right. It's beautiful. Yeah, you sent me a lot of pictures of it. It's really nice. Now, what does one of those units go for?
I got it booked this month. I just put it on Airbnb for $600 a night.
Oh, that's great. Now this is the big season for Maine right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, Maine is pretty busy all the time, but it's like picks up late April and pretty strong until Thanksgiving. People are coming all the time.
Yeah. Mario Ultimate Art. Any wants to know if I have any plans to interview Dexter. Oh, I always love interviewing Dexter. If he's got anything to talk about, I'd love to get him on.
Dexter talks on every topic. Of course, he's got something to talk about.
Yeah. Mary, you want to draw someone? Draw a caricature of Chris and I. If you want. He was asking. He's an artist. He wanted to do some. Wanted to know what we wanted him to draw a picture of. So there you go. Do Chris and I. Do a good caricature of us. Maybe skiing or something like that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we're gonna enter the baby carriage walking.
It's who was I talking to this weekend? When I was talking to Troy Alves the other day. Troy's got grown kids, he's got grandkids, and he's got babies like I do now. And
he's got a daughter who's like really old, and he's I thought I had like a stretch from 17 down to 2. You want to laugh, Dave? My 15-year-old looks like he's 22, and he was on the playground with my 2-year-old, and someone thought that he was his father.
He theoretically might have been able to, yeah.
Well, he looks 22, so that's when
How tall is the 17-year-old now?
5'11". It's probably like maybe 214, 215, somewhere like that.
I thought they were over 6 feet, you kids.
They know the oldest, the triple jumper prepped for like 8 weeks for a contest.
Yeah.
He's about 6'3".
Oh, he is 6'3".
Yeah.
So maybe he could challenge Bumstead in a couple of years.
Well, you know what? He's ripped to the bone.
I'm sure.
He does not train with weights, and his midsection's insane. His shoulders are wide. His pecs are pretty full. Yeah. He's ripped. He don't eat much either. He's got my appetite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He won't be good then. Well, maybe he would be good for Classic. He won't outgrow the class. That's for sure.
Yeah.
He could probably weigh like 100 pounds more than he does right now and still make the weight.
Well, he passes out with no diuretics. I don't know how he's going to do any contests. State long jump. I'm like looking at, okay, long jump, scholarship. He's scratched.
Yeah. Yeah, someone's asking me, this is interesting. I just read this too, because Amazon banned, you can't sell any products with N-acetylcysteine in it anymore.
You kidding me? Why?
That's a good question. I have no freaking idea. They think it's a drug. I don't know. It probably works. As soon as someone tries to ban something, I always say, get a hold of it.
Get all of it.
That means it must work.
Yeah, there was an energy drink that someone who used to sponsor RX Muscle like maybe 7 years ago. It was, you would know it. It was like tasted like medicine.
Yeah.
And you told me it because I like stimulants, and you gave me like a half a teaspoon.
Oh no, Patrick Arnold's the clear shots. Yeah, you love
clear
that
shot,
stuff.
Dave.
Yeah.
When they banned that, I went out and got like 20 bottles. But
you did? Oh, I didn't know that.
But I never, I never really opened them because, and then I was afraid that they might like gone.
The geranium oil, that
That was like, okay, I just got 3 hours of sleep, use a teaspoon. And it's like, okay, we'll sleep.
Chris and I were walking through I think it was the Arnold Expo.
Arnold.
And I stopped, and of course I'm talking to Patrick Arnold and bullshitting with him, and he had just come out with it. He didn't even have it in pill form. It was in these liquid. He called it liquid clear shots. It was like a little like vial, basically. And I don't really do stimulants, so I'm like, but I said, Chris, I knew Chris loves stimulants. I said, Chris, you want to try this? He goes, oh yeah, sure, of course, because you were falling asleep. You drank this thing. I thought Chris had taken like 2 ecstasy pills or something like that. He was like, whoo.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then they banned it, right?
Yeah, they banned. Yeah,
you know what? The minute I tried it, I know exactly what I said. They will ban this immediately, Dave, because it's like you drink it and okay, I'm completely wide awake without shaking and jittering and.
Yeah. Chris, someone wants to know if Milos could prep your son.
Because Chris Bumstead says nothing. Because nothing. But Milos, he passes out even just in regular heat. Says give him some magnesium, potassium. They give us a little potassium and started 22 weeks out.
Your son calls you up from college. Dad, I hired Milos.
No, I need
to do giant sets with him.
I need a track coach in Maine because if he probably practiced for the summer, he'd destroy the state championships next year.
I almost had someone for you when I went at Franklin and Marshall College back in the summer. I mean, back in 1986. So I went there for 4 years, from 86 to 90. My track coach, Coach Iannicelli, Coach I, he had a big nose. Italian guy, and he would put his face like right to your nose. You know, ever to see one of these guys? His nose almost touched your nose. That's how close he would talk in your face. Very intimidating guy. He was short too, and Coach I was a great coach because he was like it was like being in the army with this guy. He had a house in Maine, and he would go to Maine every summer. And unfortunately, I think he passed now, and he's retired. He could have been perfect to train your son, but he's no longer around. So I almost had a coach for you.
Yeah.
How's that for connection?
Yeah, I need like you can get an Uber. I need a coach.
He would have whipped your son into shape. He was the most intimidating, short little man you've ever met. Like you couldn't say no to the guy. If he told you to do something, you had to do it. Like he was one of those guys, you know.
Sounds like an Italian Bob Gruskin.
He was. I didn't know Bob like that, but he was so intimidating, this guy, and you just didn't say no to him, and that's just the way it worked. And I saw him once. Some football player was doing something he shouldn't have, and he got in the guy's face, and the guy was giving him like some lip because he didn't know who he was, and I thought he was going to crack this guy, and he had this guy in tears. I don't know what he said to him, but he had the guy in tears. The guy was like apologizing. He must have said like, I'm gonna kill you or something like that. I don't know what he said to him, but I always respect people that had that level of intimidation without actually physically having to do anything,
Yeah, I always I appreciate good coaching in like sports for youths and high school, and I think I told you that story that when I took my kids to summer track, they were like 7 and 8, and one of them was going out to run the 880. I learned so much from my 7-year-old son at that day.
Yeah.
I came down onto the track. I was so excited he was going to run the 880. We drove to this like town in Maine, like 2 hours away.
Okay.
And I came down to give him some advice. And he amazing, 7. He listened to the advice, but then he asked me, "Did you ever run?" And I said, I gave him advice. I said, "No, I've never run track whatsoever." And then I corrected myself. I said, "Whatever I just told you, don't listen to me at all. I was just trying to help out." But the idea that, he listened, took the advice, but then realized, geez, I don't know if that advice is really good advice. Because the coach had already told him what to do, but I was so pumped up,
Right. Yeah, that's what I have to. I'm afraid when my son starts playing sports, I got to keep my mouth shut because I'm like, I'll think I'll start studying. I'll be getting coaching manuals.
Dave, that's a true story. When my oldest was ahead with 1 jump left for the triple jump,
you're giving him advice. You don't know anything about this guy
somehow. Yeah. Tell him, there's always next year, or tell him, anything. And my son's too nice, and I said, I will. And that embarrassed the hell out of him.
Of course,
I said, he was asking, well, which eyes? I said, just go stand next to him. Go stand close to him when he's getting ready to do the jump.
Yeah. I think we're signing Logan up for flag football. I got to try to get him in a sport, and they have it this summer. I figured it requires the least amount of skill. He can just basically slam into people and run around like a little.
You need something at that age, Dave, to tire him out, even though it doesn't work. They just get more.
Yeah, they get more amped up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Someone wants to know. Oh no, that was funny too. Someone wants to know who the most complete bodybuilder in your mind was.
Complete. Darn. It's funny. I was just thinking recently of, I think he's very underrated. At his absolute best, remarkably complete was Danny Padilla. Padilla.
He was good, yeah. He was good.
People don't talk about him.
Hanson posted a picture the other day of him on his Facebook. It was pretty impressive.
Hanson had sent me like a link to his interview, the first one, which was really enjoyable. But I can remember looking. This is Dave. You want to laugh? I can remember getting Muscle Builder in 1981 at my house, and looking at the pictures from the Olympia. He got 5th, and I thought, God, he should have been a lot higher. It was the year Franco won. He
was a freak, yeah. He was a freak, Danny. I think he was underrated.
Yeah, very underrated, very balanced, very short, not looking short,
Danny reminded me of my grandfather, like a short Italian man, but like tremendous ability, just tremendous physique and work ethic and you could tell everything was just because he worked his ass off. Did he work at a grocery store for
20
years, something like that?
Yeah, look at that. That shot is from the 81. 81.
That's crazy.
How many years ago was that? 40?
His legs blew Franco's away. There was no doubt about that.
Look at the level of separation and conditioning.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I agree with you. He was complete, yeah. Lee Priest, very complete too.
Yeah, Lee's complete. There's a lot of complete bodybuilders, but that one just came to mind. Of course, blah, 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 Bob Paris. Who won? He's complete. Complete with pleasing. You can't win an Olympia being incomplete, more or less, No,
there's a lot of people.
I think when people use the word complete, it implies also balance and flow. You know what I mean? It discards a little bit freaky.
Yeah.
They're asking.
Someone's asking, talk when you get tired, your belly starts going in and out because you're trying to gasp for air. If you talk to the great meditation, people, you always belly breathe. That's where you get the deepest breaths in. So I think when you get tired, your body naturally, unconsciously resorts to sucking air from, bring your stomach in and out. If you take more shallow breaths, like through your chest, just breathing through your chest, you're not going to get as much air, but your belly is not going to start moving, which is what happens when people get tired. The problem is if you don't practice breathing through your chest, it's impossible to do it on stage. You'll just instinctually go back to what, your body naturally wants to do, which is pull as much air in as possible.
That was Jose. That's why I made the pause. He just called and I said, sorry, I can't talk. I'm doing the radio. We wanted an update on Dusty. Do you have any info?
What did he say?
He hasn't texted me back yet. He just called 2 seconds ago. I just hit.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Someone wants to know what's going on with Patrick Moore. Have you guys talked since the show?
Yeah, we talked since the show. Okay. I told him, like everyone else, to do classic. I'm just kidding. I think Patrick and, he knows that. I think Patrick with 10 pounds of muscle is
crazy dangerous,
remarkably dangerous. And I think it's so doable. If people knew the context of what, he hasn't had an off season for a while. And I know, and other people have not had off seasons for a while.
Yeah.
But the last time, his 2 off seasons, and I told him this, he went from winning, quote, a weak class at a weaker class. Well, he went from winning his class at the USA, taking a year off and making a big jump to the New York Pro, but they didn't really look at him. You know what I mean? He got 13th at the New York Pro.
Right.
And he made monumental steps And that's what he said he was going to do. I'm going to take the year off, go from the USA to the New York Pro. And he didn't place well at all. And he made the statement that, I'm going to do the Cal Pro next year, which he did, and he won that. So that was like another full year off.
Right.
And that was 6 weeks out from the Olympia. Of course, he went into the Olympia, that year he got 10th and was like, big time talk of the show. And then last year with COVID and some other issues, he didn't have it. He has not had an off season off.
Right.
And that type of physique with the right bone structure, even though it's a light bone structure, you need a whole full year to like make the big drop the hammer. I got the 10 pounds and I'm beating people, who are the big wigs.
Are you working with him still, or are you going to?
Yeah, I plan to work with him this off season.
Okay, cool.
Nothing yet, says Jose Raymond on.
Okay. That can't be good news then.
Yeah, that's what I'm. That's.
I hope I'm wrong, but usually when there's no news, that's not the best news. So he must be in the same situation, I'm assuming. What's John Hansen, by the way, wrote Danny Padilla too. How funny is that, Chris? You see that?
Yeah.
It's pretty funny that he picked the same person you did.
Overrated.
No, I'm talking about Danny Padilla as far as most
Family
complete.
Feud, John, with us. Bodybuilding Family Feud. Yeah, no. So we think alike. So we can bring him on. We can bring him on like either Match Game or Family Feud bodybuilding version.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, I think. Aaron Baker, I got to get Aaron Baker. Someone's asking when we're going to get Aaron Baker on the show. I have to coordinate that. I'm still working on that, but definitely want to get him on. We talked about him last week. True talent.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah. He's like the original Kai.
Yeah.
Very creative, very art. You know what I mean? Draws.
Yeah.
Crazy physique. Ask Jay what Aaron Baker looked like in the gym back in the day.
He was crazy. I remember seeing him at Gold's. I went to Gold's Gym. Was it 19? This was probably when I had gone there before. Maybe it was one of my trips in 95 or 96 or something like that. And this was well after the WBF. He had made the comeback into the IFBB. And I saw him in the gym, just like, you remember those crazy outfits he used to wear?
Hutskins onesies.
Yeah. A unitard, they were called, right?
Yeah,
Hutskins. Hotskins complete to the bottom to the top. It was like a tank top that was connected to like the spandex bottom. He looked like Superman he looked like, if you saw him, you would think that this guy's got to be Mr. Olympia. Yeah, that's how good he looked.
He did well, and he's another guy. There was a lot of shows that could have obviously placed way higher. For one reason or another, he didn't.
We knew it was political. It was definitely political. Joe was, butthurt that that Aaron left, and Aaron was a star. And like you said, Aaron never even turned pro, right? He just went right to the WBF after.
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think he.
So I think that Joe was a little let down with that. I understand. Look, it was very competitive back then, and when there was a lot of tensions running when Vince McMahon started WBF in 1991 or 1990, whenever he first started it, because. That was the heyday of bodybuilding starting now, and now Vince is stealing the talent. And so there was bad blood there.
Well, there was bad blood because here's Joe's mentality. It's not a business. I created this. Like I created all of it. The magazines, right? Arnold. I created Arnold. This is his mindset. I created all the bodybuilding stars you see. I created the supplement business. It's all mine. Right. So when somebody comes and says, "Oh, I'm going to give a bodybuilding league a shot," you just take it so personal.
And he's throwing big money around, right?
Yeah. Real money.
If it was some joke of, that was
it'd be a joke.
Yeah,
if it was me and you, Joe would say, "Good."
This guy's flying him out first class.
Yeah, he'd probably support us in some wacky way. Joe would. It'd say like, I'll give you $20,000 to like promote the first show.
Yeah.
But the guy who's like sells out the Silverdome for wrestling, 95,000 people. and knows how to do TV.
I wonder why. Maybe because he's a little older now and he didn't care. I wonder why Vince McMahon. I do know. Vince McMahon actually was trying to buy the Mr. Olympia contest. Did you know that?
No, don't surprise me one bit.
But they wanted a ridiculous amount of money when he was actually trying to buy it.
What year was he trying to buy it?
A couple of years before, I think Jake bought it. I think the price came down, or maybe it didn't. Maybe Vince didn't think it was worth what they sold it for. We don't know what the number was that Jake paid for it. So, but I know they had inquired about it, but they didn't want to sell it.
It would have been exciting, but Vince would have had like Kim Kardashian judging the bikini with Tyler, and he'd want he'd want to like put in
celebrity
like a
panel. Would that have made it more appealing though?
Yeah. He'd want like The Rock to be judging the 212 or the Open, right? And then he'd create like drama lines where The Rock doesn't really like Ramy or Phil,
Or he'd make big Ramy and Phil, have some kind of, lines they have to read at the press conference.
Well, think of this. We'd have shows like this. All these people with internet shows say, it's like, is it true that Ramy doesn't like Phil and Phil doesn't like Ramy and Bonac is in fight? Or is that just
you wouldn't know if it was true or not, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Like with the Floyd Mayweather fight. Was it really a fight or was it or did they make it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
We heard that like
for the when I was a Star Trek fan when I was a kid, and they came out with one of the Star Trek movies, Star Trek 4. They went back in time and they were trying to save the whales, and they made it very tongue in cheeky. It was like almost too comedic.
Yeah,
and it was the most popular movie in the box office because it had widespread appeal. But the real Trekkies, the people who love Star Trek, didn't really like it because it wasn't serious.
Yeah.
So I think as far as for bodybuilding in terms of seriousness, I think Jake buying the Olympia was better because Jake is serious about bodybuilding. He's supports the women, the men, and it's going to stay hardcore. Whereas if Vince would have got it, maybe it would have been much more mainstream appeal. But maybe the true hardcore bodybuilders would not have liked where Vince would have taken it. Maybe
maybe two.
And I'm only speculating. It could have been phenomenal. I don't know, but there certainly would have been more money brought into the sport or the ability to make more money, right?
Well, in defense of
because Mannion would still be running the shows.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, huh? But for you have to. Are we
have some kind of a delay going on?
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
No,
are we back?
Dave, defense Jake. Defense of Jake, but he did a damn good job putting on the Olympia the first year.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say is that, can you hear me okay, Chris?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. What I was going to say is I think what would have happened is, obviously Mannion still was running the IFBB, but Vince would have just made it more pomp and circumstance for the Olympia. And like I said, I don't know if that would have been received well or if it would have been, negatively received. But, for the hardcore bodybuilders like us, I guess the way it's going now, having Jake at the helm, really supporting the sport in the sense that we got to make it happen. This is what bodybuilding is. We're going to stick to this to what the essence and the spirit of the sport is. I think we got a good guy at the helm over there at the Olympia, so I'm happy about that. But we're gonna wrap things up. I appreciate you guys asking all the questions, and hopefully we got to answer most of your questions. And we'll do it again next week. And if you guys want to, prepare some questions, some real good ones for us to answer. Chris, I know Chris and I think Ramon will be back next week. We'll be more than happy to do that. For now, though, we are out of time, Chris. As we say every week,